Hello and welcome to a very short tutorial. We're going to look at Unity. This is Unity 5.4.2. I think Unity 5.5 is out. So I'm going to start a new project and I'm going to call it Terrain. And I'm just going to put it in here. So yeah, in that folder. So select folder. Terrain, and it's 3D. We'll add packages in a minute. So create and run. So what we're going to look at is basically very simple Sandbox. We're not going to do really any scripting. We're just going to use pre-made assets here in Unity and have a look at how some of them work. And hopefully they're all the same as or similar to what I've used before. So, this is our default scene in Unity. Excuse me. So here we go. We're going to go to Assets and Import Packages. And the one that we are interested in is Environment. So we're going to click on that. And this is one of the standard asset packages. So everyone who has Unity or the install in the college has the same thing. So if we look here, we'll see all sorts of interesting stuff. You'll see speed tree under environment. We will later down here. There's conifers, so all sorts of interesting things. Palm trees. This is interesting. So terrain assets. So there's a terrain editor. I think we may have looked at it very briefly before. We have water shaders and all sorts of interesting things here. And we're just going to import them all. So we'll get a standard assets folder here, and all of these items will be brought in. It'll take about a minute. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make a terrain, and we're going to use the brushes and the tools available in the terrain editor to give it a bit of a shape, maybe to paint it with a couple of basic textures, and then place a few trees on it. Then we're going to import a new package, which is characters, and we're going to put in first-person shooter prefab, and just basically have a look around the sandbox world that we've made. So there we are there. So we've got our standard assets, and there's all sorts of things here. We'll go back to them in a minute, but we're going to go to game object, 3D object, and what we want to create is a terrain. So let's double click on our terrain, and there it is there. For some reason I'm in wireframe, so I'm going to go to shaded. And then over here, this is our terrain editor. Shaded, okay. Now, these are the basic tools. This is our setup. So kind of basic sort of stuff here. And this is probably the most important stuff here. So the size of this terrain. Now it's been added in at 000, and it's 500 by 500. So, if I change that to 1,000 by 1,000, you can see it updating there in the editor. And then it says terrain height 600. So it's the max height we can have. Okay. So the resolution is interesting. We can increase the resolution, the detail resolution. Things start getting really big really quickly if we do that. This is also interesting here. So tree and detail objects. So this is sort of a if you are playing a first-person shooter and you're in a sandbox open world game level, what you'll find is that up close and personal, a tree is a tree. It's three-dimensional. It has branches and tree or leaves and all sorts of things. But as you move further away from it, the game engine will swap out a low polygon tree for a high polygon tree when it's far enough away. You shouldn't notice the difference. And then at even greater distances, say like on a mountain in the distance, it shouldn't actually be putting in polygon models at all. It should be putting in just a single plane with a picture of a tree in it that is billboarded, so it's always facing towards you. So that's sort of so it's kind of detail and levels of detail. So we can play around with that here, and that gives us a great kind of gives us a lot of control. We'll come back to that in a minute. So let's just have a look at our tools here. So this is completely flat at the moment. You can see because I've selected these brushes that I can now draw on the island or on the terrain. So let's now zoom out a bit. And what we'll try and do is, this is my brush size, so I'm going to give this sort of not too big now, so I'm going to change to sort of like brush strength and brush size. So I'm going to try and make this so that we've got a high kind of wall around the side of our terrain, and that way we can't escape. Now, when I say we can't escape, the first-person character controller will have on it an angle at which it can't move beyond. So, like if you have a cliff wall, for example, it won't be able to. Your character won't be able to move over that. Okay, and then we'll give it take one of these here. Kind of reduce this and make a couple of features here. Beautiful. Okay, so that's just kind of give you an idea of what you can do, and you can do absolutely amazing things in this. You can draw amazing landscapes. I'm sure you've seen lots of examples of them. So I'm not going to do any more than that because it's just a tiny kind of example. This here is also for painting height. But I can set sort of like a maximum height, and I could draw maybe a plateau, or so I can have a bit more fun here if I want. I'm going to not do that. I'm just going to move on. This is for my to smooth things. So if let's go back to say this one here. I'm going to smooth these here. So these might be. You can use quite crude brushes here. That'll give you sort of very spiky sort of terrain, and using smooth, you can just sort of make it a bit more, well, like when in terms of scale, like the character will be quite small compared to these mountains, so you don't want very strange, low polygon kind of pyramids sticking up off the terrain. So smooth. Now we get into interesting things. So this is textures, so we can texture paint this. Now this is basically, it's a very simple sort of set of tools. You can do the same in most 3D packages. So I'm going to go add a texture, and then I'm going to click select. Now these textures would have been brought in when we imported the environment package. You can see these are mostly for trees, etc. So I'm going to pick grassy rock here. So double click on that and go add, and then the entire terrain has had that texture put on it. Fine. So I'm not going to interfere with that. Now I'm going to I want to add another texture. So I'm going to go edit textures, add texture, go through the same process. I need this, so I'm going to add something kind of grassy. So there was one there, I believe. Oh yeah, there we go. So yeah, that one there. So I can go add. Oh no, that's not going to be a good texture. Select. I should really preview these before I bring them in. Yeah, that looks better there, so we can see it's like a grass texture. So now I have to select this one, so I know it's selected. It's got a blue line here at the bottom of it. Hopefully you can see that. And then I can start painting target strength. So I can start painting over here, and you can see that I've painted green on top of this. Now I can have quite a number of textures in here, and do some quite interesting and quite detailed texture painting, and get rid of these sort of repeat patterns, and that you can kind of see. I could obviously have separate textures for these rocks, etc. So again, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. I'm just going to show you, basic functionality. Trees. Let's add some trees. So we go pick a tree. So there's none. So we're going to click on this little circle here, and then I've got broadleaf mobile, conifer desktop. So let's pick that one and go add. Now, brush size and so you can see there tree density. So in each brush stroke, what's the density? So I'm going to bring that down a bit. I don't want to have really thick forest, or at least not yet anyway. And we'll just zoom out a little bit and see what we can get. So put in some trees. Okay. And you can. There's all sorts of interesting. So tree height is random. You can put in gradients at which the trees won't go on a slope higher than a certain gradient, etc. So you can put in a lot of detail here. You could make your own tree. There is a tree generator built in, so if you wanted to have a unique tree experience, if you want to have more than one type of tree, so it's a bit more interesting visually, we can go edit tree, add tree, and in the same way we can add in another. So we'll go palm tree and add that. Then again we wait for it to load, and that's now selected. So maybe in this area here I'm putting in palm trees. Okay, and they've come in very small. Tiny little palm trees. Look more like shrubs. Palm shrubs. Okay. Now over here it says no object detail defined. So if you wanted to add in, so I can go edit details, I can add a grass texture or add a detail mesh. So if I wanted to make, say, rocks and paint in a rock terrain, like individual rocks, I could do that here. So I could make a mesh in another 3D program, like in Blender or Max, whatever, and bring it in here. So I'm just going to add my grass texture. I don't have one at the moment. I think I had found one by accident earlier. Was that it? Add. Yeah, that's it there. Now, I'm going to zoom in so you can see the grass texture. And scale becomes quite important for this. So as I paint here, I can't see anything. Well, actually, that could be because I haven't turned these up. But so you can see there's nothing really has been added. So I paint over here. But as I zoom in, you can see suddenly there is grass on that ground. And even though I'm painting grass here, I still can't see it. So the distance at which the grass becomes visible is set here. So let me go find that one. So this is tree in detail. So wind shading for grass, speed, blending. Where am I? That's my base map distance. Is it actually in with grass? No, so it must be in here. So detail distance, maybe. Yeah, there we go. So now obviously this is going to put a huge amount of strain and pressure on your processor. So you have to be careful not to overdo this. But you can see why it's in the sort of this stage where you're actually painting stuff on that you don't want. You want to be able to see what you're doing. So you can find yourself not being able to see what you're doing. So just paint in a bit of grass here. Okay, so that is a miserable sandbox world. But we've generated it in a really short amount of time. And now I'm going to go to Assets, Import Packages, and Characters. And this is going to, in our standard assets, bring in a whole sorts of first and third person packages. I could have gone through them there, but you will see them now in a second. You'll see I haven't actually done anything with the main camera, I haven't done anything with directional lights, so we're going to add in, we'll put in a skybox in a minute, and we'll put in, we'll put in our first person player and maybe play this as a game, or it would be more like a simulation than a game. Okay, so I've got characters here, and I've got first-person characters, and I've got prefabs. So I've got first-person controller, and I've got a rigid body first-person controller, which I'm kind of more interested in. So what's in there? So there's a camera. So I can take this camera here and delete it, because I don't need it. And I'm going to take this and drag and drop it in. And I'm going to press play. And what happens? Well, we have to wait for the light to go blue on my play bar. And whoa, okay, I'm way over here. I'm at 0, 0, 0. So let's just go fix that. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and we can see we set the terrain to be 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. So it'd be big. So I have zoomed out. I'm going to move, and then I'm going to move this back. And maybe just move it up fractionally, and then I'm going to press play. So here I am. I've immediately got mouse look. I press my forward key, and I'm walking around. And obviously the height of the camera, I can tweak all that. Here's the edge of my grass. I don't know if you saw in the settings, I can set a wind speed for the grass. I can have the grass, as you can see here, I am not moving, but the grass, she be moving. And obviously you can set all sorts of other types of grass and flowers and all sorts of things. So, I mean, this is quite, this is not a bad start to a first-person shooter. And this will run on mobile. And now you have to be careful how you run on mobile with grass and trees, and you can blow your budget pretty quickly. But this is not bad at all as a starting point for a first-person game. So this is what we're going to do, or maybe you've done it already. This is what we're going to do in class, and just have a little exploration of this. And just as a kind of a finish up, we're going to have a look here at our camera. We're going to move the collider down a bit so the camera is a little bit taller when we play. I'm going to click on the actual camera itself, and you can see here it says it's set up for a skybox. Now, if I click on my lighting tab, now if you don't have a lighting tab, you need to go Window, where be lighting? There be lighting there, and then that will appear as a tab if you don't have it by default. So it says here as default skybox. So I'm just going to click on this, and let's see if there's any skyboxes here. It says default skybox. So let's just very quickly, and I probably don't need to do this, but we'll do it anyway. I'm going to the asset store. Now you have to be. This doesn't always work if you're in college. This might work because you're kind of logged in as some sort of generic user, and you need to actually have an account for this to really work. So I'm going to go skybox and search, and then I can say free only. So I can add that to my. So this says there's a skybox. There's a whole bunch of them. Some of them are wonderful. Some of them are sci-fi. Some of them are not so great. Bright shining stars. 3 skyboxes. So, and it's got lots of stars here beside it. Let's pick that, and we will download it. And free is a good price. Yeah, they look kind of pleasant. So we'll download them. They shouldn't be that big. It's only a couple of JPEGs. And you can see, so each skybox has 6 textures and has this number of pixels in them. So it's fairly detailed. I'll show you how to make one of these soon, or maybe Ross will show you, but they're not difficult to make. So it's just importing this from the asset store straight into my project, which is very handy. If you haven't used the asset store before, it's excellent. There's lots of really good stuff. But just remember, for your projects, whatever you use from the asset store, first of all, you have to identify where you got it, who made it, so that you're not plagiarizing, and obviously you will get no marks for using other people's work and other people's material. So try and make your own. So I'm going to close this here, and skyboxes, and So these are, so here's my skyboxes here. Here's the three of them. These are the actual individual images. So I can drag and drop these in here as materials. So I've got this one. So maybe we'll have a play and see what that looks like. So I'm a little bit taller than I was before, and I am moving very slowly. Actually not in control of where I'm moving, but that's quite a nice skybox, I have to say. That is not bad at all, particularly for something I did not pay for. And it adds quite a bit of atmosphere. You can see the atmospheric light in the game has also changed. So, there we go. Sandbox world from nothing in, let's check how many minutes. 20. Alright, we should do it quicker in class.